So what I'd like to do now is to move on to the next section of the agenda, where we're going to dive into some of those barriers that Vanessa had alluded to. This is the research with Ipsos Mori and the Tech Talent Charter, and here to walk us through it, there are only two people who can do this, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage the president of the Gender Balance Network at Ipsos, Sue Phillips, and the Global UU Service Line Leader, Insights for Impact, Debbie Forster, MBA, CEO of Tech Talent Charter. Welcome, ladies. Thank you very much indeed. It's all yours. Take it away. Thank you very much. Morning. Hi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And when you do actually get a chance to download the report and you have any questions, I'm the person to give a call to and ask. I'm just going to take you through now some of the highlights in that survey that we conducted. So let's start with this sort of rather sobering image on the left and think about the world in which you find yourself in terms of your work and your life. Which voices are the loudest? Which gender, which age, which ethnicity? And this is where you'll find some bias. Bias exists because of the dominance of the narrative that happens within the world you find yourself. And where bias exists, people will not be performing at their best. And this was Elizabeth's, one of the people I actually personally spoke to in the survey. Reducing that unconscious bias is the first thing that needs to happen. That was the context for the survey. So let me just fill you in on what we did with the survey. So as we just said, we did over 363 interviews. We spoke individually to 6 people. And what we found of those people, we had just around half were 25 to, so 2/3 were at the prime of their career, so 30 to 49. Again, 2/3 were white. We had 1 in 5 who were under 30, majority were UK, and around half had children under 10. And most were actually working full-time at mid-levels or senior positions. So that's the context of who we actually spoke to. So when we speak to women, they actually really appreciate that they bring something different to the workplace. And we've heard that already from Dame Caroline. We are able to cross boundaries that men sometimes are not able to. They don't carry the same level of ego sometimes. I look where we can all succeed together. It's not an I problem, it's a we problem. So they see the benefit and value they bring. But, as was already mentioned, 1 in 5 women are thinking of leaving their current role. So actually, if you're sitting at the table now, there will be people who will be sitting at another table this time next year because they're not happy with their current role. So why do they want to leave? So nearly over half say the workplace is not currently supportive to women. And why is that? Couple of things, again, which you've heard already. Some of it's about visibility, so you have to see it to be it. We've heard that. There's a lot of research that says that. And so therefore you need to broaden your shoulders if you're the only woman or the only black person in the room. The responsibility you carry is higher, and that means you have to really boost your confidence to actually to remain and stay. And one of the women I spoke to shared how when women were going for a promotion, there was a sense that they had to prove their capabilities to deliver on the role. Whereas somehow for men, the potential was taken more into consideration. So both of those are clearly challenges. But let's look at the practical things we can do. So we can only really deal with specifics. So what can we do? So the 3 main barriers, which if overcome, could have a material impact on gender balance in tech. So first is the clear path to career progression. Second, sponsorship, or lack thereof, which exists at the moment. And the third, again, it's been mentioned, is male allyship. So on the first, we have 2/3 of women feeling frustrated and anxious about their career advancements. They're not sure how to advance in their careers. So first of all, it's around the lack of obvious promotion opportunities. That seems to be the biggest barrier. So the career paths are not clearly outlined for them. The lack of confidence, again, around, again, we just heard the idea of actually women will wait until they can do 8 or at least 10 out of the 10 things before they might apply for the job. And lack of senior supportive role models, again, difficulty balancing work and other responsibilities, so that can also be a challenge. And finally, sexism and gender bias, which we will come back to a little bit later. So secondly, sponsorship. So sponsorship is something of a mystery to many of the women we spoke to. They know it exists, but it's not apparently for women. And it was amazing how often it came up spontaneously in the conversations that I had with people. But no one is looking really for special favors here. They just want something that they feel is already available to men. And over 2/3 think that access to mentoring or sponsorship is actually important to attracting them to an organisation. So we know how difficult it is, again, to attract and retain people. Having sponsorship can really help with that. And so, again, what do they think are some of the ideas that we could put in place to help with this? Raise awareness and understanding of how it works, provide clarity to obtain it, showcase successful sponsorship relationships that have existed, so show where the bright spots are in order for people to realise that it is a success when it's offered, and obviously make it more widely available. Then the third area was male allyship. And this is where clearly some work needs to be done. So again, wonderful, as we've said, to see so many men in the room. So only 19% see all or most men as allies. So what was defined as a male ally? So a man who actively supports gender equality, either through their behaviour towards women, their support of women, and their hiring, training, promotion, etc. of women. So it is not difficult to be an ally. And 85% of women who see men as allies say giving credit for achievements is the best way to demonstrate allyship. However, on the downside, 75%, real downside, 75% say at least some men within their organisations are actually not allies. So they claim to be great supporters and great champions, and then they'll say something which gives them away. And so I think sexism tends to be a little more subtle. So there are microaggressions that perhaps it was a little bit, but it still absolutely exists. So only half report men not calling out inappropriate behaviour towards women or acting inappropriately themselves. So really, there is still some microaggressions going on in organisations which need to be addressed. So 3 recommendations. Capture and share data related to performance in a more clearer, consistent manner across all groups. And I know that Debbie will be talking more about some of these recommendations. Implement those mentoring and sponsorship programs and make sure people are aware of them so they're well communicated. And then finally, showcase examples of good allyship through storytelling via intranets, comms and channels. So if they can see that happening again, that will really help. So as I said, please, that's really the top line snapshot of the data, but please do get in touch if you want any more information from the report. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Now I'm going to talk, and I'm sorry, I have a cold, so I'm going to talk to you sounding a little bit like one of Marge Simpson's sisters, all right? I've never smoked a cigar, but that's where I am today. But I think it brings to me a calmness about what I want to talk to you about. My name is Debbie Forster. I'm the CEO of the Tech Talent Charter, the TTC. We're a not-for-profit organization that brings together all of the tech ecosystem, including We Are the City, including many of the companies on the sign here, to drive inclusion and diversity in tech. Since we began in 2017 with 17 companies, we now have over 700 organizations working together to share what works, what doesn't work, to collaborate, to share data, to move the dial forward. So when I say here, I've been in these discussions for a long time. I look around the room, I saw some familiar faces. We've heard this before, but I want to put a positive spin on this. When we began 7 years ago, we did have to fight to get people to realize there weren't enough women in the room. We did have to fight to get the business case recognized that D&I made a difference to the bottom line. But those doors started opening. companies began joining, began sharing, began coming to rooms like this. If I think back what we were doing 7 years ago, this would have been a room largely filled with women, largely filled with white, cis, able women from middle-class background. This room is changing. What I love, one of my favorite comments is Winston Churchill's "never waste a good crisis." You may have noticed the last 2 years felt like a bit of a crisis. But let me put it to you this way. We fought so long to get women to the table. We fought so long to help women break through the glass ceiling. But now, look around, you're at the table. Now, look around, we're getting women through that ceiling. And the dynamic is changing. It is no longer just about we as women have to change ourselves. It is about we can change the system. We are at the table. And what's also interesting, last year in our report, with our 600 signatories at the time, in their top 5 problems that they cited, their problem was finding mid and senior level women. Now, when you combine it with today's data, that becomes a very powerful case. The data gives us a sense of the growing crisis of the talent shortage and just how valuable all of you are in this room. And you also have the examples of what you can do to change things. So what does that mean you should do? Number 1, use the data. Use the bottom line data about the impact of D&I. Use the data here about the risk. Start turning the argument around. Some of the recommendations in the report will have a cost, but start turning this around to talk about this is an investment, not a cost. For anyone at the table looking around, thinking that you might lose 2 people at your table in the next year, has a genuine threat to the organization. So what can you do to change that? And then use that language, use that data to start driving practical action. And what I would say to the women at the table, we don't need to wait to be rescued. This is something that we can begin changing the conversation today. We can start shaping the questions using the data, and we can start offering the practical suggestions and ways forward. When Vanessa turns this into the practical discussions that you're going to have at your table, how can you, as an organization, talk about that huge problem of how do we retain, grow, and promote great women within the piece? How can we use the recommendations on clear, transparent data? Making very clear the progression pathways that women can take to grow and be promoted. What is the training support that middle managers need to be better at the job? Let's stop bashing our middle managers. Let's look at what is the training and support we can do to enable them. What can we do for men? What training and support can we give them to help them understand how to be more powerful allies and champions? Don't let mentoring and coaching and championing be a random one-off. I saw someone and I had a crazy idea. Why don't we do some mentoring? Build that in as hygiene within your company. Take your company on the journey that everyone has access to be part of a learning community, to grow. When you sell that to a company, that is a powerful investment in a wider, more motivated and skilled workforce. And in a world amidst the great resignation, when there is a talent shortage and there is a need for more mid and senior level women, companies are listening. Look around the table, look at the next table. Those are your competitors and your collaborators. What can you learn to move that forward? So what I want to remind you with today is this is an opportunity. When the world is emerging and building back, I love the idea of leveling up. Let's strip away the political connotations. Let's go back to what it means with gaming. When you level up, it's something you do again and again. And you have more points to assign to different levels. You have ways of making alliances and choosing new skills. But it's time. Level up is an active verb. What are you going to do for your career? But more importantly, what are you going to do to change the rules in which not just we ourselves, but those around us can all succeed. So apologies for the froggy voice, but I throw the challenge. What are you going to do to help yourself and your company level up?
Sue and Debbie, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thanks very much.